is going on, ladies and gentlemen? BizzyDad here, you there, checking out today's video, and thank you so much. Before I get into this, I just want to take a quick second and say I picked up my first subscribers this week. I'm pumped. Thanks to everyone who subscribed. Also, thanks to everyone who's liked my videos, left a comment. I read them all. I try to reply to them all. It's been really fun so far, so please keep it up. Share my videos. Subscribe, like, comment, all of that good stuff. I have more videos in the works and matches and other things we want to put up and have some fun. So please, let's keep that rolling. That was a really good first week. So with that, this is a profile for the deck I like to call Zada-Dun-Dada. The foundation of this deck is green, but we do cover all the bases. We run white, black, red, this little splash of blue in the sideboard, some void, and even moon. I'm going to show you guys some moon love today. And we have a lot to get into. There's a lot of great combos and cards here, so let's get into it. Our ruler is the Liberator of Wind. Look at her. She's on the bed right now reading her book. She's reading about the croco sharks running wild, saying, what the heck is going on? We have to do something about this, and we will. Guys, we will. She is a wind ruler with really a great one-shot effect that I think gives you a great advantage before the game even starts. It says, at the beginning of the game, search your Magic Stone deck for a card, then shuffle the rest of your Magic Stone deck and put that card on top of it. Basically, this gives you the ability to go into your Magic Stone deck before the game even starts, pick the one you want, and put it on top. It doesn't seem like much on the surface, but when you see how this deck is built and how the cards interact with our Magic Stones, you realize just how key that is, and like I said, gives you a little advantage right off the bat. She does have a Judgment, which is 1 colorless and 2 green. It lets you flip her over and to Scheherazade, the teller of 1001 stories. This is where the deck gets its name from, Zada-Dun-Dada. She has 700 attack, 800 defense, but we're really not flipping her over for her stats. We really love her enter ability. So when you J activate and she flips over, her enter ability, search your main deck for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your main deck. She also has another activate ability to rest her and draw 2 cards if you have no cards in your hand, which is nice. It's never gotten to that point for me. I never used that. It's that enter ability that's really killer because you get to search your deck for any card. You don't have to reveal it, and then you put it into your main deck. There are other cards in here that let you search your deck for specific cards like Resonators or Additions or Regalia, and usually you have to reveal it to your opponent before putting it into your hand. But this one, you just search your card for any deck, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And really, we save flipping Scheherazade until we just need that one final card or one final combo piece to end the game. And another one of the fun reasons why it's called Zada-Dun-Dada is because if you see Zada, you're done Dada. Usually you're going into the deck to find that last card and hopefully just play it right away and then just end the game. So her 2 abilities are really strong, even though they're just one-offs. But the way the deck works, building it out like that with the stones and being able to get what card you want, it really works, as you're about to see. So we will get into our Magic Stones. We're going to run 5 basic green wind stones. This is the foundation of our deck. Most of our cards are green based, so we have green in there. We're also going to run 4 copies of Magic Moonlight. So here's our first look at Moon. This stone right here produces a moon by itself, but it can also produce 1 will of any attribute that a Magic Stone you control could produce. So basically, if you have a green stone, if you control a green stone, and then you draw the Magic Stone of Moonlight, this card can now make moon, and it could make green because you control green. So it is a pretty handy card as long as you have other colors that you can already produce. If you draw this by itself, if this is your first draw, that's usually bad news because all you could do is make moon, and there's not a lot of turn 1 moon-only plays, which means 99% of the time you're whiffing with this and you basically just have to pass the turn. However, we do run 1 copy of the Magic Stone of Moonshade, and guys, this is the card you are going to put on top of your stone deck when you use Liberator of Wind, when you use her before game ability. This also produces moon, but if you pay 200 life, it could produce any color: white, red, blue, green, or black. So this is our money card right here. Because once we have this, once we control this, yes, you do have to pay 200 to produce that will being any of the colors. However, once you draw the magic stone of Moonlight, you can now produce any color because you control the moon shade. It basically means once you control this, once you control the moon shade, all the moonlights are wild cards. They could be whatever you want, and you don't have to pay. This one, you have to pay 200 life to produce a color. But once you have this, all the moonlights basically become wild cards, any color you want. That's why it's important to make the moon shade your top card. So once that hits your field, you probably have to burn 200 life for your turn 1 play. That's okay. For the rest of the game, when you draw the moonlights, these are any color you want. So you can see how important it is to put that stone right on top. Let's move into our Resonators. First off, 4 copies of the Wind Sprite. It's a 1-drop, 1 green to play, 200, 200. And if you rest it, you could produce light. So this is pretty good, and it's really optimal first turn play to grab that moon shade first, lose 200 life, and then put the Wind Sprite on the field, because now we have 2 will on turn 1. So really strong play. We have 4 copies of the Lunar Ibis. It's a really interesting card here. So it costs 1 light to play. It's a 300, 300 with flying, and it has an awakening cost. So here's our first look at this. Awakening is when you put a card into play for the first time. Usually the awakening cost is an extra cost, but it's optional. You don't have to do it. But if you do, it usually comes with a bonus. So this awakening cost is pay a moon, and when this card enters your field, recover target resonator. If you do, put 2 +100/+100 counters on this card. So if you play the Ibis and you have a moon, you pay the moon, you recover another resonator, and the Ibis now becomes 500, 500 with flying. And that's pretty good. But not only that, you want to use the Ibis to recover a resonator that you control that already attacked this turn. This gives it the chance to attack twice, and we'll go into that in a little bit. We have 4 copies of the Heart-Stirring Sage. This is another 1 cost, costs 1 green to play. It has 0 attack, 600 defense with a very unique ability. If you rest it, target resonator's attack becomes equal to its defense for the turn. Until end of turn. I'm sorry, it is a game of words. I should get the words right. So this is pretty cool. You can even target the Sage himself. You can rest him, and his attack will become 600 for the turn because that's his defense. And although that's great in a pinch, we have another card that we want to combo this Sage with in order to really put on the pressure, and it's this card right here, the Artificial Moon. Here's a Void card. It just costs 2 of any to play. And to quick note, you can use Moon to pay the Void cost. There's no color and there's no attribute associated with the Void cost. So any 2 will could pay for it. So if you do have Moon, you could use Moon to pay for the Void cost. This is an Artificial Moon, 0 attack, 1500 defense. It does not fly. Here's a moon that doesn't fly. I guess it just sits there or floats, even though in the picture it's flying. So this is really just a huge wall to put up for your opponent. It's hard to get around 1500 defense unless it has a kill card to get rid of it right away. That's going to be tough. It's going to block a lot. But this is when we want to pair it with our Heart-Stirring Sage. Because if we have both on the board, you can rest the Sage, and then target resonator's attack becomes equal to its defense. Well, here's our target. And now all of a sudden the moon becomes 1500 attack and 1500 defense that you can now swing at your opponent with. That's a pretty big swing. And this is what I meant before, just to add on a combo on top of a combo. If you swing with the moon and then have the stone to play the Lunar Ibis and the moon to pay the awakening cost, you can recover the moon, who can now swing again at your opponent or a resonator for 1500. So this is the possibility to combo and hit for 3000 on one turn. That is really strong. The cards combo really well, and they're relatively cheap. The moon is 2, the Sage is 1, and the Ibis is 1 to play, and then moon for the awakening. So once you start getting to turn 3, turn 4, you could start putting these combos together, and it's going to be really tough for your opponent to have to start dealing with potentially 1,500 hits, sometimes twice at one turn. 4 copies of Wolf in the Moonlight. 2 to play, 1 green and 1 other, 500, 500. This also has an awakening cost. If you pay the Moon, again, Moon is the awakening cost here. When this card enters your field, put an evolution counter on it. And as long as it has an evolution counter, it gains plus 300, and target attack. That is very useful. I would suggest all the time when you play this card to pay the awakening cost, because it becomes 800, and target attack. That means it has the ability to go after any Resonator. It doesn't have to be rested. If a Resonator is recovered, target attack means it can go after it. And 800 with target attack is very, very tough to deal with. And we have other combos too to go with that to make it even more lethal, which we will get to. I have 2 copies of the Pumpkin Witch. This is a very good card. 3 to play, 1 dark, and 2 others. 300 attack, 800 defense. And when it enters, Resonators you control gain flying and swiftness until end of turn. That's dangerous. Because now once the Pumpkin Witch comes in, any Resonator you have on the board now flies. Any Resonator that comes in after the Pumpkin Witch, until the end of the turn, mind you, also flies and has swiftness. So even if the Pumpkin Witch gets killed, if she comes into the field and she sticks, but then your opponent kills her with a kill card or sends her back or whatever happens, as long as she hits the field and stays, that effect takes place. And any Resonator that comes in after her is also going to fly and be able to have swiftness. So very good card. I only run 2 of her because we can use Scheherazade's flip ability we could judge and search the Pumpkin Witch out. It's like I said, this is a potential game ender. So we save this towards the middle of the game or late game. And if we need her, we flip over Scheherazade, search out the Pumpkin Witch, play it. Now everybody flies. And if you bring anybody in after her, they also fly and have swiftness and can hit right away. And here's one of the guys we would like to bring in with the Pumpkin Witch. It's Gwiber, the White Dragon. 5 cost to play. On the surface, it's 5. 1 light and 4 of any. 1,200 with flying. So the dragon already flies. But it has a really nice discount ability. You may pay 2 less to play this card for each Resonator you control that entered your field this turn. So now, the discount is only on the colorless cost. It's only going to come off that 4. You're always going to have to pay the light. So the least you could pay for this is 1, but if you think about it, paying 1 to bring in a 12/12 flyer is really strong. And again, if you can play the Pumpkin Witch, that means a Resonator hit the field. So now this cost is now 1 and 2. If you play the Pumpkin Witch and then another 1-drop, like a Wind Sprite in your hand, that only costs 1 to play. And now Gwiber is only 1. You've hit 2 Resonators hit the field, 2 less for each, so that 4 colors goes away, and it is 1 light to bring him in. What's nice, this is a really good combo on the board right now. The Pumpkin Witch, flying in swiftness. You bring in the Wind Sprite, who flies but also has swiftness, so you can use her rest ability right away to produce the light to now bring in Gwiber. And that's just a triple combo, flying and swiftness. Now Gwiber could swing for 1,200 in the air immediately. It's very tough to deal with. The Pumpkin Witch usually gets a lot of groans when I play it, because usually that means there's going to be some pain to follow. And the way this deck is set up, it usually is. Pumpkin Witch is a potential game ender. We'll go into our additions, which helps our Resonators out. Our first one, 3 copies of the Flying Carpet. 1 green to play, and it's a Resonator edition, so you put it on one of your Resonators. 2 good effects. When it enters, you draw a card. Always good to be able to draw cards in this game. And also, added Resonator gains flying. So, we want to try to put this on the Moon and make it fly. If we can get it to stick, the Moon is now 0 attack, 1,500, but it's able to fly. If you're able to use the Heart-Stirring Sage, too, if you get them both on the board, rest it, let the Moon attack equal its defense. Now it's 1,500 flying, which most of the time is going to get through, and it's going to be really dangerous for your opponent to try to stop. We have 3 copies of Ame No Habakiri. This is a lethal card. This is a really, really dangerous card. So it's also a Resonator edition. It costs 2 red to play. Here's a little bit of our red support. Added Resonator gains plus 400, plus 400, which is good on its own, but it's the second effect that's just so dangerous. Whenever added Resonator deals damage to a Resonator your opponent controls, this card deals that much damage to that Resonator's controller. So it's very wordy, but it basically says if you have this on a Resonator and you do damage to one of your opponent's Resonators, your opponent is taking that much damage too. And we want to get this on the Wolf in Moonlight that has been awakened, because then the Wolf is 8/8 with target attack. We add the Ame No Habikiri, and now it's a 12/12 with target attack, and that 1200 damage is also going to your opponent. This is where target attack becomes so critical, because if you swing, you pick one of your opponent's Resonators. He's going to have to deal with it. He's either going to have to block it with something else or let his Resonator die. If he can't cancel or kill the Wolf any other way, he's going to have to lose a Resonator, and he's going to have to take 1200 damage himself. That makes it really just a dangerous combo. And again, if you can play the Lunar Ibis too on that same turn, you can have the Wolf swing for 1200, take out one of your opponent's Resonators, he takes 1200 damage. Play the Ibis with the Awakening cost, recover the Wolf, and swing again at another one of your opponent's Resonators or just at your opponent himself. So potentially 2400 damage in one turn he's looking at. You see how the Lunar Ibis becomes such a great card, and it just combos so well. And this deck is able to put such big attacks at your opponent, swinging for 1200, 1500, sometimes twice in one turn. Very tough to deal with, especially if you get the flying card, but now they're flying, makes it even tougher to stop. For our spells, we're going to use 4 copies of Seal of Wind and Light. This is a 2 cost, but keep in mind it's going to cost a white and a green to play. Always keep your stone cost in mind, especially when you're using decks with so many different colors like this. So it's an instant. You can play this spell at any time and simply put cancel target spell. Basically cancel any spell, including summons. When your opponent summons a Resonator, it is considered a summon spell. So if you see them try to play the Pumpkin Witch, if you have this card, if you have green and white, you just put it down, cancel target spell. We're going to cancel that summon spell. If your opponent doesn't have any way to cancel this or counteract it in any way, the Witch hits the graveyard and he wastes those stones. So really good, stop them in their place. Also has an awakening cost to pay the moon. If you pay the moon with it, players cannot chase to this card. So basically, it just means there is no response. The spell is going to be canceled no matter what. So if your opponent is cooking up something big and you're really keen on stopping it and don't want to have your spell canceled, you can pay the green and the light to play it, use the moon, pay the awakening cost, and then there's no questions asked. The spell will be canceled. 1 copy of the Black Moonbeam. This is another instant spell, and it costs 2 dark to play, and it's destroy target J ruler. Players cannot chase to this card, so that's built in automatically. This is an automatic kill of your opponent's J ruler, and I only have 1 copy in here because I would just only go after this with Scheherazade's ability when you J activate and flip her over to search it out and put it into my hand. You can really just look at your opponent, how they're playing. If they have a ruler that's going to flip over and cause a lot of problems, then you just go into your deck, flip over Liberator of Wind, go into your deck, find this, and just play it and take it out. And again, your opponent only has 1 J ruler, so once you destroy it and it can't be chased, you don't need this card or any other copies of it. So the luxury of having Scheherazade able to let you go in and search it out makes it there. Only 1 copy is needed. And now what is probably the most powerful card in the game, but only in this setup, is Stories Told in 1001 Nights. And this is a 3 cost instant. It costs 3 green to play. And it says, put target Resonator on top of its owner's main deck. So on the surface, that doesn't seem like it's worth it for 3, but it's the rest of its ability that makes it so killer. So if your ruler is the Liberator of Wind, which is what we have in this deck, Instead of putting the Resonator on top of its owner's main deck, you remove it from the game. Then you get to check your opponent's deck, hand, and graveyard for every other copy of that card and remove them from the game as well. So this is the Croco Shark answer. This is also the answer to any other big Resonator or big threat that your opponent is cooking up. You play this card. If he can't cancel it or can't get rid of the target Resonator somehow, you're removing it from the game. You get to see his hand and remove all the other copies from the game. Then you get to go through their deck and find all the other copies and remove them from the game instead. So in one shot, they gone. They are all out, and you have 4 copies of these, so you can essentially do this to 4 different Resonators. But it's such a powerful card with the Liberator of Wind, and this is how we take care of big threats and really just swing the advantage in our direction. The sideboard here is more just plug and play. It's very situational. I put cards in here that you can switch in and out depending on the type of cards your opponents are playing. So our first one is the Emperor with New Clothes. It's a 3 cost, 1 light and 2 others, a 700/700 Resonator. When it enters the field, destroy all addition Resonators your opponent controls. And as long as this card is on your field, as long as he's alive, your opponent cannot add addition Resonator cards. So if you're going up against somebody who's got the same ideas in mind by using really strong addition Resonator cards to buff their guys up, you could switch in, play the Emperor with New Clothes, and those additions get destroyed, and they can't add any more as long as the Emperor is still alive. So really strong card there. 3 copies of Adombrali the Unfathomable. Here's our blue in the sideboard, and our first look at a Cthulhu. Cthulhu is one of my favorite races in this game, and I really haven't put them in any of my deck profiles yet, but I do like to use them. This is a 600/800, and this Cthulhu, Adombrali, has the cost of 2 blue and 1, but you can also incarnate to pay his cost. So this is a mechanic that is pretty much exclusive to the Cthulhus. Incarnate just basically means to sacrifice your own Resonators to bring him out instead of paying the stone cost. There's a lot of text on this card, but depending on the 2 Resonators you banish or sacrifice to incarnate, you get an effect for it. So, for example, if we have our Wind Sprite and our Lunar Ibis on the field, and we want to pay, we don't have stones to pay for Adombrali and want to bring him out, we could banish these 2 and play Adombrali. Now, when he comes in, his enter effects are based on the Resonators you sacrifice. So the Lunar Ibis is light, and we gain 400 life. The Wind Sprite is green, and we get to produce any of the colors, white, red, blue, green, or black. So those are the enter effects. He comes in. If you play him after the Pumpkin Witch, he has swiftness and flying, so he can also attack right away. It's a pretty strong card when used right. I don't have him in the main deck because there are already other combos working, but he's there in the sideboard just in case you need him. 3 copies of Final Forfeit, which is a really good instant card. It costs 1 green to play. And it says a target J Resonator loses all abilities and cannot gain abilities until end of turn. And the reason why I like this card is because it does target J Resonators. So if you're playing your opponent, and we have our Liberator of Wind, if your opponent is playing Liberator of Wind and decides to J activate and flip her over to Scheherazade, this is an instant. So if you have Final Forfeit, you play the Final Forfeit on Scheherazade, she loses all abilities, cannot gain abilities till the end of turn, which means your opponent doesn't get that search. She lost the ability to search your deck for any card. Now she just sits on the field and does not get that. So it's a good interrupter. If you're playing an opponent that has a really tough J ruler that has really big enter effects, you can hold on. If you grab this card, hold on to it. And if they do flip over, you just interrupt them. Say, I'm going to chase that with Final Forfeit. And any of their J rulers effects are gone. They don't get that. I have 3 copies of Kaguya's Premonition, and I got to thank my friend and my training partner, my sparring partner, who really introduced me to this card and introduced me the hard way to this card. This is a 1-drop Instant, costs 1 light to play. And it says target resonator gains plus 200 plus 400 until end of turn. But it also has an awakening cost, and this is what he hit me with. For the moon, pay the moon, and you prevent the next damage that would be dealt to that resonator this turn. For each 100 damage prevented this way, put a plus 100 counter on that card. So it's very wordy, but what he did was he added it to one of his resonators that was 700 defense, or 700, I think 700, and he attacked one of my rested resonators. And let's just say I had Gwiber on the field, rested, so he was able to attack him. He put this he put this spell, targeted his resonator, and then attacked my Gwiber. So the 1200 attack that Gwiber would dealt to him was prevented. And now his card gained 12 100 counters. By the time it was all over, his resonator was 2300 and then just started swinging, and I couldn't do anything about it. And you only get 4,000 life in this game, so if they're swinging for 2300, it's pretty much a wrap. And I've never thought to use the card that way. It was really smart. So credit to him. It's in the sideboard. Might have to hit the main board if I can think of a card to come. Finally, I have 3 copies of cards that we have in the main deck. Ame No Habikiri, the Flying Carpet, and the Pumpkin Witch. And again, it's situational. Plug and play just based on what your opponent is playing. If you need more flying ability, you could put in an extra Flying Carpet. If you need more aggression, you could put in another Ame No Habikiri or another Pumpkin Witch. Really just based on what your opponent's playing. So guys, that is it. The deck profile for Zada-Dun-Dada. I'd really like to know what you think. You like it? You hate it? What would you do differently? Leave a comment below. Likes are always appreciated. And please subscribe. Keep on subscribing. We have a lot more videos coming up. We got some matchups coming up. We're going to record some matches with me and my friend. Maybe he'll hit me again for another 2300. Who knows? But it's a lot of fun, and I definitely like hearing from you guys. So thanks for a few minutes, guys. Have a good day. Later.